Good morning, students. So far in this subject, you have already learned many important concepts of Oracle and SQL. First, you learned SQL commands. You understood DDL commands like create, alter, drop, which are used to define database structure. Then you learned DML commands like insert, update, delete, and select, which are used to work with data. After that, you learnt operators, relational operators, logical operators like, between, and in. You also learned how to combine data from multiple tables using joins. Then we moved ahead and learnt aggregate functions such as sum, AVG, count, min, and max. You also understood how to use group by and having clause to analyze data in groups. In the previous lectures, we took our first step into PLSQL. You learned how to write a PLSQL block, how it is structured, and how it executes. You also learned how to create and work with procedures and why procedures are useful in real applications. Now, once you understand procedures, the next concept becomes very easy. Today, we are going to learn a new and very important topic in Oracle, creating functions in PLSQL. Don't worry if this sounds new. Functions are very similar to procedures, but with one special feature, and we will understand that step by step with simple examples. So relax, focus on the flow, and let us begin today's topic, creating function in Oracle, PLSQL.
What is a function in Oracle? Now, students, since you already understand procedures, learning functions will be very easy. Let me explain it in very simple words. A function is a PLSQL program that takes input, performs some processing, and returns exactly one value. So whenever you want some result back from your logic, you use a function. Let me explain definition of a function in more simplest way. When we talk about a function in Oracle, you can think of it as a small PLSQL program written for one clear purpose. A function takes some input from us. These inputs are called parameters. Then, inside the function, Oracle does some calculation or applies some logic on that input. And finally, and this is very important, the function returns exactly one value back to whoever called it. So remember this clearly. Input goes in, logic runs inside, and one result comes out. Now, what happens to this returned value? That value is not wasted. We can directly use it inside a SQL statement, for example, in a select query, or, if we want, we can also use it inside a PLSQL block, just like a normal variable. So whenever your requirement is, I want a result back from my logic, then a function is the correct choice. Don't worry if this feels new right now. Once we write our first function together, everything will become very clear. Key characteristics of a function. Whenever you write a function in Oracle, there are two rules you must always remember. If you remember only these 2 points, you will never get confused between a function and a procedure. 1. A function must return one value. This is the most important rule. A function must return exactly one value. No compromise here. That is why the return keyword is compulsory in every function. If you forget to write the return statement, Oracle will not treat it as a valid function. So please remember, no return value equals no function. You can return a number, a character value, a date, or any single value, but it must be one and only one value. 2. A function can be used inside SQL statements. Now here comes the big advantage of a function. A function can be directly used inside SQL statements. That means you can call a function inside a select statement. You can even use it inside the where clause, so your SQL query can become cleaner, shorter, and more powerful. Now please pause here and understand this line carefully. This is the biggest difference between a function and a procedure. A procedure performs an action, but it does not return a value to SQL. A function returns a value, and that value can be used inside SQL. Once this difference is clear in your mind, half of PLSQL becomes easy. Basic examples of functions. Let us look at some common situations where we naturally use functions in database applications. Number 1, function to calculate bonus. Think about a company payroll system. Every employee has a salary, right? Now the company rule says bonus is calculated as a percentage of the salary. So here, input is the employee's salary. Inside the function, we apply the bonus calculation logic, and finally, the function returns the bonus amount. So it does one clear job: give salary, get bonus amount. This is a perfect example of where a function is used. Number 2, function to convert marks into grade. Now take a student results system. A student gets some marks in an exam. Based on those marks, we decide a grade. So here, input is the student's marks. Inside the function, we check the marks range, and the function returns a grade, like A, B, C, or fail. Again, notice the pattern: give marks, get one grade. What do we observe in all these examples? In every example, there is input, there is some logic or calculation, and there is exactly one output. This is the natural behavior of a function. That is why whenever your requirement is take something, process it, and give me one result, then you should immediately think of using a function. And that is also why functions are extremely useful in real database applications. Now that this idea is clear, in the next part, we will move ahead and see how to write the syntax of a function in Oracle, step by step.
Function versus procedure. Many beginners get confused between a function and a procedure because they look very similar. But once you understand a few key differences, the confusion completely disappears. Let us compare them point by point. Return keyword. First and most important difference. A function must have a return statement. Returning a value is compulsory. A procedure does not use return to give back a value. It mainly performs an action. So remember this clearly. If returning a value is compulsory, it is a function. Usage in select statement. Now, this is a very practical difference. A function can be used inside a select statement. You can directly call a function in SQL. A procedure cannot be used inside a select statement. Procedures are executed using the exec command or inside a PL SQL block. This is why functions are more tightly connected with SQL queries. Purpose. Now let us understand the intention behind each one. A function is written to calculate and return a value. Example, salary calculation, grade calculation, tax calculation. A procedure is written to perform an action. Example, insert data, update records, delete data. So, calculation, function. Action, procedure. When should you use a function? You should use a function when you need to return a single value. You want to use the result inside an SQL query. Your logic is mainly calculation-based. You want reusable logic for queries. When should you not use a function? You should not use a function when your task mainly performs DML operations like insert, update, or delete. You do not need to return a value. Your logic is action-oriented, not result-oriented. In such cases, a procedure is the correct choice. So students, if you remember just this one line, you are safe. Return value and SQL usage, function. Perform action, procedure.